Hi, how are you doing today? We're here with my March wrap up. Yes, another month has happened. How is time flying by this quickly? I don't know, but we're here and I'm excited to talk to you about the books I read in March. Let's start with some stats. So I read 11 books in March, which amounted to 3,673 pages read, which is an average of 118.48 pages per day and 333.90 pages per book. I owned 3 of the books that I read this month. 2 were ebooks, 4 were galleys from NetGalley, and 2 were library books. Then for star ratings, I have 3 2-stars, 1 3-star, 4 4-stars, 3 5-stars, and my average rating is a 3.63. Then for an age range, I have 2 middle grade books, 4 young adult books, 5 adult books, and then for genre, we have 2 contemporaries, 5 fantasies, 2 historical fiction, 1 graphic novel, and 1 classic. That is everything for the stats. I kind of went through it quickly today, but let's get into the actual books that I read. The first thing that I read this month was In Limbo by Deb JJ Lee, which I gave 5 stars to, and it's a gallery I got from NetGalley. This is a graphic novel, and I got it, like I said, I got it to NetGalley, so I checked it out and I really liked it. It's a graphic memoir, so it's based on the author's real life, and I thought it was just a very engaging story. A lot of aspects I could relate to, also a lot of aspects I couldn't, but overall I really felt for the character. Feels weird to say because it is a graphic memoir, but I really felt the feels that you were supposed to, and I also really like the art style, so I definitely highly recommend this one. And next I read The Serpent Shadow by Rick Riordan, which I gave 2 to 5 stars to. If you watched my King Chronicles series review, which is up now, so go watch it, you know that my journey with this series has been a journey. But I can say that this book, which is the last book, just was really disappointing to me. Besides just being boring and I'm just generally not liking it, I also just thought it was a not great finale, as I felt like not a lot happened, and what happened was very predictable from the very start of the series. So I don't know, I just felt like this book was a massive letdown for me personally. Then next I read Demigods and Magicians by Rick Riordan, which I gave 2 to 5 stars to. This is a collection of 3 short stories that do kind of have a overall narrative, so it is kind of important to read them together. You can just read them randomly. They are a crossover between Percy Jackson and the King Chronicles, because it features Percy, Annabeth, Sadie, and Carter. So yeah, it's about them. And it also, I feel like this is an important read to read after the King Chronicles, because something that also made that last book disappointing to me is that there is this story arc that feels very unfinished, but that's because it gets wrapped up in here. I did have fun with this. I loved seeing Percy and Annabeth again and having an adventure with them, a new adventure with them in it. I also really liked the interactions between the 2 worlds. I thought that was combined really well, because in the Cake Chronicles it mentions a lot how the Greeks and the Romans kind of invaded Egypt and how they took over a lot of pieces of that culture. So seeing those things kind of being combined in this book, the Greek mythology and the Egyptian mythology and stuff, I thought that was really cleverly done. But I also thought this was nothing really special. It's a fun time if you like both series. But then next I read Infamous by Lex Croucher, which I gave 5 stars to. I got from NetGalley. This is so much fun. It's a historical romance, but I feel like it is a bit unconventional compared to other historical romances. It's a bit different, but I think it's fun. I generally had a lot of fun with this. It's also sapphic, and I really liked the relationship. I liked the development of it. I really liked the main character that we followed. I do think the ending got a little bit too much, and there's still a lot of things I have questions about, because so many things were happening and I don't think things were fleshed out enough, which is why I eventually dropped the star rating. But overall I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to read more by this author in the future. Then next I read The Portrait of a Duchess by Scarlett Peckham, which I gave 5 stars to, and again I got from NetGalley. This one I enjoyed while reading it. I genuinely did. I had a fun time. It is a large cast of characters, so that is something to get used to a little bit, but once you do, everyone does have a very distinct personality, so that works. But when I finished it, I was just very underwhelmed, mainly because I didn't like the romance. Also didn't really like the female main character, but I just overall, I feel not being a personal fan of the female main character, could have had some leeway about like the romance, but overall I don't think they fundamentally fit together. Like they disagree on so many things that are like very basic fundamentals you have to agree on to be able to work in a relationship. But yeah, so that's why I ended up not really liking this, even though I had a fun enough time while actually reading the novel. So next I read Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko, which I gave out of 5 stars as soon as I got from Nick Kelly, and I am so happy I did. Like generally, I got the notification for this and dropped everything and started reading because this is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I read it and it did not disappoint. And I do have to say, nostalgia bias plays into this because I believe this book is set into like 2006, I think, which definitely there was no nostalgia bias because in 2006 I was 5 years old, not a teenager. But I do feel like this kind of like transported me to the time where the song and music video came out of this, and I was constantly watching it, and like that mindset I was in, this book completely transported me to that time, and therefore it felt very nostalgic to me. And I always describe this book as like it having me, like it brought me to a different realm of existence, because I don't know, while I was reading this book I was not myself. I was somewhere else, past Me Too cover as well for a bit. So take this review with a grain of salt, because there's definitely some nostalgia bias with this, because it's not the best book, but I had such a blast reading it, and I do think it tackles its more serious topics well. I would have liked to see a little bit more development from the love interest, and like the writing is a bit simple, but I feel like it kind of works for the story that it's like, you know, writing, I guess. Then next I read Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong, which I gave out of 5 stars to. This is the second book in Elise Fannin's Delights duology, and I really enjoyed that first book. I read that in the beginning of last year and I really enjoyed that, but I wasn't in love with it. This, obsessed. I read it in my reading vlog in which I finished duology, so you can go check that out. It's up here somewhere, so you can go check that out if you want to know more like my in-depth thoughts on this book as I was reading it. But I genuinely was obsessed with this book. I loved it so much. I really love these cast of characters. I really love this world. I love the plot. It's so intricate and really well developed. And when it comes to the plot, there's like 3 like big things, and the way they influence each other and play into each other and stuff like that, I really loved. And I really loved how just the story was crafted. Then next I read Kiss of the Spider Woman by Manuel Puig, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. This I read for a reading vlog that's coming up. I'm not telling you what the theme is, maybe you can guess because there's another book it is wrap up that fits for the vlog. But anyway, I read this. It's very much out of my comfort zone and I immediately loved it. I don't know, it takes a little bit to get used to, that's true, because it is written in just dialogue mainly. Towards the end it gets a little bit more things, but in the beginning it's like just dialogue, and it doesn't say like who is saying what. It's just like dash and then one person's dialogue and then dash and the other person's, and like so on. So it takes a little bit to figure out who's who and to get used to that writing, but once you are, which is surprisingly quickly, I had to say this is such a fun book. Not a fun book because it deals with a lot of serious topics as well, but it's such a good one. It's very entertaining. I laughed at numerous points, which was surprising. I also have a lot of movies discussed in this, which most of them are based on actual movies, but overall they're kind of like supposed to be fictional, not real. But some of them are kind of like inspired by really existing movies. But seeing those discussions around those movies were really interesting, and how it played into what the characters were experiencing of the book, and I really liked that. The only thing I didn't really like that much was the ending. I felt like that was a little bit confusing, and I had to read some reviews and like some other things about this book to be able to like fully grasp what that ending meant. And then the reason why I docked the star is because throughout this book at times we have these footnotes, and I just do I understand, after reading reviews and like articles and stuff like that on this book, do I understand why that was included in this book? Yes. Do I think it added anything to this book? No. I would have gotten the exact same message from this book without those things, and it was very boring. It took me out of the story as well, and I wish it wasn't included at all. Then next I read The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, which I gave 45 stars to. I started watching season 2 of Time and Bone. I have not finished it yet, so no spoilers. But I started watching it and I got very much in the Gusha mood, so I picked up this book. This was on my top of TBR for this year, and I really liked it. I always like these kind of books that are like fairy tales, like stories from like fantasy worlds. I really enjoy it. This wasn't a 5-star because I wasn't like in love with this, but I really liked this. I also really liked how Leigh Bardugo kind of took a twist on a lot of fairy tales and like just has like some commentary on like common fairy tale endings and stuff like that in this, and I really like how that was incorporated. I really like how that was done. And then I read The Driver Was Waiting by Priya Guns, which I give 5 stars to. This was a bit of a disappointment for me. I really wanted to like this a bit more because I really loved the premise of it, and I really liked the beginning as well. But I liked the beginning, I thought it was promising, but it wasn't a fan. I just feel like almost nothing happened in this book, and then the things that do happen in this book very much hinge on this romance. That's just like not it. And I also just didn't really like her main character. I thought she was very self-obsessed and I wasn't a fan. I do think that this is a satire, even though I didn't think it was funny. I do think this has some great commentary, political commentary. I thought that was on. Sometimes it's a bit surface level, but overall I liked what it was trying to say and how it said it. Then lastly for today we have The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan, which is my first reread of 2023. Yes, I definitely want to do more rereads this year. I always love it. I read this and I really loved it. When I read this originally, I gave it 4 stars. Laura gave it 5 stars. I don't know what was wrong with me back in the day because I was a lot critical. Not to say that I'm like super critical right now, but I feel like often when I go back to look at reviews from like books I read way back in the day, and I see that it's like a 3-star, like a 4-star, and I'm like, babe, that was a 2-star. Being generous, let's be honest. The fact that I raised my rating for a reread from that long ago says something. I was a stupid bitch. That's what it said. I really enjoyed this. We follow Magnus, who is just such a blast to read about. He's so sarcastic and so fun, and he very often like voices my thoughts about like the confusion about like Norse mythology and like stuff like that, and like the plot that's happening, and I really love that it was done as well. I really love the inclusion of Norse mythology. I think Rick Riordan does that really well, building his plot and like his magic system around things and mythology. I don't know a lot about Norse mythology, but you learn so quickly while reading this book, and you learn so many things. And yeah, I overall just had a blast reading this. The plot was so action-packed, but also like took its moments to breathe and explain things and like have you sit in moments. I really love the cast of characters besides Magnus, like all of his friends and his group of people he meets in this book. Also just so much fun, and I am very excited to continue on with the series, hopefully very soon. That was everything I have for you today. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these books, if you've read them, as well as some of the books you read in March, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.